Okay, so it's a very warm welcome to Meridian Sports Show to the award-winning multiple #1 soprano, Joanna Forest. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's a real pleasure, and thank you for joining us on the show this evening. It's really nice to have you on. Let's kick off with let's go back to the very start for you, the very beginning. Did you always dream of becoming a classical singer, and how did it all get going for you at the very start?
Well, actually, no. My dream, as long as far back I can remember, was actually to be an actress. That was
Oh.
that was the big idea. And I really, really wanted to go to a stage school instead of a normal school.
Okay.
Such a dream of mine, but I don't come from a performing family. So my parents were like, what now? What's this? I was like, oh, I want to be an actress. And they're like, that's quite unusual. So we had a deal that if I auditioned and I successfully auditioned, then I was allowed to go. And the school I had my heart set on was Italia Conti. Luckily, I actually did get in. And it was actually when I was there and I started to have sort of, I guess, professional singing lessons.
Yeah.
I realized that I could actually sing rather than just enjoying singing, like around the house, on long car journeys. I'd always be driving my family mad, singing.
In the shower.
In the shower, absolutely. And then I really wanted to do musicals, and I did some plays in the West End. So it was all sort of a mixture of things, voiceovers, commercials. It was a huge mix. And then it was only a few years ago, I realised my real sort of dream had changed, and I wanted to sing, and I wanted to sing as me, maybe not as a character in a musical, which you can kind of hide behind. You sort of really have to get used to going out onto a stage and just being like, hi, I'm Joanna and I'm going to sing for you this evening. That's a lot harder than knowing your lines, knowing the context of your lines, and you've rehearsed for ages, and what would your character be feeling. All of a sudden you're just standing there as you. But I haven't looked back. It's definitely sort of the path I should be on, and I'm really glad that I sort of changed my focus.
There's nothing wrong with that. Was that something that kind of happened as you went through school, through that Italia Conti school?
No, I still was very sort of fixated on the acting and the musical theatre. It was only a few years ago. Actually, it was my husband who'd been to see me as Wendy in Peter Pan at the Bath Theatre Royal, and he was like, "Is this something like what do you really want to do? Like, is this something, this is the type of thing you've done for sort of so long now? Is like, what do you really want to do?" I remember him like saying to him, I sort of want to sing as me, and he gave me some really, really good advice. He said, if you keep doing the same thing, you get the same thing. So I was like, that just makes so much sense when somebody else says it. Sometimes you have to sort of step out of your comfort zone and try something else to get a different result.
Yeah, definitely. And it's worked for you so far. It's really good to see. Just looking back a little bit, who have been your biggest influences over time to kind of get into it could have been acting, I guess, at an early age, but now you're into your music career. I guess it's probably musicians and that kind of thing.
I think my very first biggest influence was watching the TV and seeing Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Song and Dance, and the first half of the song was Sarah Brightman, and I was really thinking, who is this amazing lady? She's acting, she's singing, she's really like telling the story. Wow. And I was just completely blown away by her. She was probably my biggest influence to thinking, I want to do that, definitely. I sort of like all types of music. So I don't know. And I think it's sort of nice to be influenced by lots of different types of music and genres. So I've probably got quite a few people that I admire, but she definitely sticks out as the first one, and I was like 7 or 8, just thinking, yeah, you're amazing.
Well, that kind of shows in your music, because your debut album in 2017 was Stars Are Rising.
Yes.
That went straight to #1 in the classical album charts, which was pretty amazing for a brand new album. How did it feel to have that success so early on?
It was the most incredible feeling. It really was. It was so exciting, because you work so hard on an album, and you have to, first of all, you think about all the songs that are going to go on there, and then you start to hear the arrangements, and then you have the recording day with the orchestra, which is just phenomenal and mind-blowing. And then you have all the sort of difficult part. As an independent artist, you have to do all the stuff that to me was a big learning curve. It can be quite difficult, things like working out the right people to help you with things like distribution and all of that type of stuff. And you have to think about things like artwork and getting them printed, and then you have to think about marketing and all of that type of thing. But it was like a huge sort of like mountain. And then when it got to #1, it was just like, wow, it was just it was an amazing feeling. It really, really was incredible. And it actually, which is super exciting, it made chart history, because I'm the first person to do that with a debut album as an independent artist. So yeah, it was just amazing.
I mean, it sounds like an absolute minefield, actually. I mean, let alone recording your music and actually come up with your ideas and that sort of thing, being creative, but actually everything else that goes along with releasing an album. It must have been such a relief to see it go to #1 like it did. Probably, well, was that more than you expected from it? I mean, I guess in the back of your mind thinking it'd be great if it went to #1, but was it more than you expected?
I think it's one of those things where I'd like to say, oh yeah, I was really confident, of course it's going to get to #1, but actually it was the most hugest welcome, amazing sort of surprise thing.
Imagine,
when I first started working on the album, if someone had said to me, this is going to be a best-selling album, I'd been like, what? No. So yeah, it was incredible.
Brilliant. I mean, you've actually had a second album that's come out since, in 2019, Rhythm of Life. How difficult was it to follow up the success of that first album?
Well, it was a completely different concept. So the first idea of the first album, Stars Are Rising, was to create an album that I just didn't want to record all the standards that sopranos record, which are beautiful songs. I love them. I will sing them live, but we just wanted to do something a little bit different, and hopefully something that would appeal to sort of lots of different people. So we had the idea of having things like a David Bowie cover on there, a Beatles cover on there, a
The Life
Slade
of Mars track I absolutely love. I think I've been listening to the music over the past few days, and that Life of Mars one just sticks out, because I really enjoy cover versions that bands do, and I tend to find that there's some singles out there that almost untouchable sometimes, I think, by such artists like David Bowie and that sort of thing. But you did a brilliant job, and I'm a big fan of David Bowie, and I really enjoyed it. So I just had that was later on in my list of things to ask you, but that really stuck out for me. So I really enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you, because that's one of my all-time favorite songs. It's such an amazing song, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we also had to make it classical chart eligible, because there's certain rules of the chart that we did have to have some sort of very classical things on there. So it's a real sort of mixture. But one of the things that sort of I realized was that quite a few people sometimes think that they don't like classical music, or they think it's not for them. And my inspiration for my second album, The Rhythm of Life, was an album for the whole family, to introduce younger ears to classical music. And I've started doing a workshop that goes into schools. It's like an interactive one. I can't do it now, unfortunately, because of COVID, but I was going into schools and doing this interactive children's classical music workshop. Because some children, are super lucky, and they have all these sort of music opportunities at school. And some children don't have those music opportunities at school. And that just is such a shame. It breaks my heart, because music should be for music should be for everybody.
Should be.
And,
Yeah, agree.
you know, there could be the next Elton John, you know, going to school, who just hasn't had the chance or the opportunity to even know they have a talent. So that was my inspiration for the album, and it's a day in the life of a child. So each song also has like a time by it. So we start off with Take That's Greatest Day. We go all through the day until we get to Claire de Lune as they're going to sleep, nighttime, dreamy end to the album. So it was a completely different concept. And I feel like with the second album, you sort of feel a bit more confident that you've worked out some of the things you didn't know when you were releasing the first album, but there are still mountains to climb and things that are different. But I also had two very special guests on my second album. I had Paul Potts, who was the first winner of Britain's Got Talent.
That's right, yeah.
He's an amazing voice. So that was just lovely to sing a duet with him. And he's been so supportive of my career. He's just the sort of the warmest, kindest person. And then my super good friend, Andy Day, who anyone who has young children will know that he is a CBeebies presenter, and he does Andy's Wild Adventures and Andy's Prehistoric Adventures, all these clever things that children really enjoy. So we did a version of Let's Go Fly a Kite together, because
it's a really good fun song.
It's so
really
fun.
Good.
And Andy is very passionate about, you know, children learning through music, and music being able to you know, like change perceptions. You know, they've got Andy and his band, Andy and the Odd Socks, have got some brilliant philosophies. So he was, you know, really happy to jump on board and be part of the album, and that makes it really special for me that I've got, you know, two wonderful people on the album as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we touched on Life on Mars already. You just mentioned Let's Go Fly a Kite. There's two very different tracks there. How do you decide? I mean, obviously that's a very different album, and you had a concept there, and you just, the way you just explained, the way you worked through the album. How do you decide on whether you want to cover a track, and how are you going to put your own spin on it? Do you find that quite easy to do, or difficult, or is there certain songs out there that you think, I'm not going to touch that one, or, you know, or that one looks like it might be easy to do, sort of thing?
I think it was when we were deciding what was going to go on Stars Are Rising, it was a question of don't rule anything out just because it hasn't started off in the classical genre.
Yeah.
We had a big, huge, it was a real fun part of making the album. It really, really was fun. We had a list of all the possible songs that, you know, that we love, like things like Life on Mars, that have always been a favorite, that, you know, could they work, you know, with a big huge orchestra. And then we worked with the producer of the album, the genius Robert Emery, who also did the arrangements, and he would be able to know what he thought definitely wouldn't work or could work with an orchestra, and then the list would go down again, and then gradually, it's amazing, you have just the right amount for an album after a super big long list. It takes time and a lot of thought, but it's really fun,
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of the orchestra crossover kind of thing. There's a track by Biffy Clyro, you may have heard it, Spaced, and they've just done a version of that with a classical orchestra behind them. And
lovely.
You know, because it's such a slow rock song, and then they've changed it to the background to be, it's just so, it just makes it so elegant, and, you know, it just makes it so very different, and it sounds amazing, it really does. And I love the crossover of music, because I don't think there's anything that you can't touch in that respect. If you do it well, then there's, you know, I don't think there's anything that's kind of untouchable. I think there's a bit of music snobbery sometimes in that, actually, I shouldn't really touch that, that's a classic. But hey, why not? Why can't people, you know, put their own spin on things? I really enjoy that sort of stuff. It's great. And as I say, I listen to some of your music, and some of the stuff, Life on Mars is brilliant, but some other stuff, Let's Go Fly a Kite, just brought a smile to my face. It's brilliant. It's really enjoyable. So that's really good. I encourage anybody listening to just go and check out your music, because it's really good fun. On that front, we've been through lockdown, and we're going for a second lockdown now. Has that influenced you to create any new work? Is there a new album in the pipeline, or plans for the future coming up quite shortly?
Yeah, the whole lockdown thing back in March, that was like, what? Like, Wow. And no live performances, which breaks my heart, because one of my favorite things about London is the theatres, and it, you know, I just think it's just heartbreaking that I know they have to, and that's the way it is, but it just feels so sad. And Broadway, and
It really does.
yeah, just so sad. But I think sort of the good things for me that have come out of lockdown is I tried some slightly different things. Like now I write a column for my favorite magazine, which is a classical crossover magazine. So, you know, that was something new. I'm gonna, you know, try writing a column and see what happens. But I'm really enjoying it. And that
Great.
potentially wouldn't have happened if
Yeah.
there, you know,
Yeah.
if there wasn't a lockdown. I think social media has been a really good way of sort of staying in touch with what's going on. Even if you can't perform, you can at least say hi and connect still with you know, the music lovers who aren't being able to get out and watch lots of concerts that they would be. It just makes you wonder what will happen to, you know, theatre next year. I know personally I've booked some theatre tickets for next year, but will they happen? We just don't know, do we?
It's just a doubt in the back of the mind now, isn't it? You know,
it is.
You know, because
It is.
it's crazy.
It is. There were some things that I was meant to be doing, you know, maybe say like September time, and then in March I was thinking, well, I'll definitely get to do it by then. This will definitely all have just been gone. But no, it's still sort of like rumbling on, isn't it? So yeah, it's been a weird one for the arts, definitely. But I really hope that the arts has always bounced back, hasn't it? So I am hoping that when the time is right, it can bounce back again.
Totally agree, and it will, no doubt it will. But it's, you know, I understand the struggles that people are going through, and you know, we're big fans of live music on the show. We absolutely love live music, and we've missed a few gigs that we plan to go to this year, and it's been really hard. It's been really difficult, you know, just let alone for fans, but for artists like yourself, you know, that sort of thing. It's really difficult, really tough. Before we move on to your involvement in the new track that we're going to play very shortly, indeed, I just wanted to ask you about your involvement with your charity work with CoppaFeel.
Oh yes, CoppaFeel is such an awesome charity that's very close to my heart. And if anyone hasn't heard of CoppaFeel, they're a breast cancer awareness charity set up by two amazing ladies, Chris and Maren Hallinger, who are identical twins. And Chris was diagnosed with breast cancer at 23, and it was a late diagnosis due to it being missed for various reasons, and she just didn't want that to happen to anybody else ever. So they are so passionate about women and men checking themselves and being breast aware that they started a whole charity to get this message across. And I'm really proud that I am a Boubette, which means that I share my own story of breast cancer, which I had at 21, which is young for breast cancer.
Very young,
which is CoppaFeel's main message is, you know, it doesn't know any age. It is rare, but it can happen when you're younger. So so us Boubets, we go to schools or mother and baby groups, lots of different businesses, and we share our story, and we do a presentation to just hopefully, you know, make checking yourself a habit that will last a lifetime. And it, you know, it could save your life one day. So yeah, and we haven't been able to do the presentation in person recently because of COVID, so we've been doing webinars. So if anyone's listening, you can book a Boubette webinar for your company or your school. And they are amazing. They're a small charity, but they really know how to shout their message really, really loud.
That's fantastic. That's really good. Obviously, it's a brave new world, isn't it? Using Zoom and doing webinars and that kind of thing.
Yes.
How have you adjusted to that? Has it been okay, or I think it's taken us all a bit of time.
I don't even know if I'd done a Zoom before lockdown. And then the other day I had to do a Boubette webinar for like a really like cool company because it was Chanel, and they
Oh,
were like,
really?
yeah, I know. It's like amazing, cool. So they were doing it on Microsoft Teams, and I was like, what now? What's this? How does this work? I just got used to sharing my screen on Zoom, and now this is all different. So yeah, technology isn't always my friend, but this is just the way, like, you know, that we have to do things
Yeah,
now, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, it's the way we've kind of got used to it. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And your involvement in charity, I mean, charities need everybody's help at the moment. Charities
Oh
are there to
yes,
help people, and they always have done. But I think, you know, a lot of charities are struggling at the moment, so it's worth
yeah,
checking out some of these charities, particularly CoppaFeel. We follow a couple of
yeah.
charities and help raise money as well ourselves on the show. So yeah, I urge people to go and check out these charities
Oh, you're
and
so
help
right,
them along.
because
Yeah,
yeah, because a lot of fundraising activities just haven't been able to go
yeah,
ahead this
exactly.
year.
Yeah, yeah.
And a small charity like Copperfield just really, really feels it. So
Mm.
you're absolutely right. Like, we need them, but at the moment they need us
They
too,
do.
don't they?
They really do. They really do. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, it's a big thing at the moment. Let's get straight onto the topic that we got you on to the show for. Obviously, the sad news of Matt Ratana was a shock to everybody, and it hit the local community particularly hard. But it made
Mm.
national, international news as well because of the the shock waves that what actually happened. It hitting the news. There've been a number of tributes paid to extremely popular East Grinstead rugby club coach, not just from a local area, but from far and wide, as I mentioned. But I have to say, the track that you've recorded is just a perfect way of paying tribute to what was a brilliant guy in a local community. Can I ask, how did you get involved in the project in the first place?
Well, it was completely out of the blue. So I had a call from lovely Millie from East Grinstead Rugby Club,
Mm.
and she said, oh, we need some music, and we'd love it to be Weldon Union for Matt's nomination for the Unsung Hero Award for BBC Sports Personality Awards. Can you make that happen? And I'd like everybody else, I'd seen it on the news, and and was so saddened and shocked by it. I was like, yes, absolutely, of course. And so once we'd recorded it, and my friend and super talented pianist Joel has created an arrangement just for Matt, and after we recorded it, Millie then had the idea of releasing it to help kickstart fundraising for the Matt Ratner Rugby Foundation, which is going to be a foundation to really make all his everything that he wanted to do, all his hopes and dreams, that this foundation will make them become a reality. All the initiatives that he wanted to bring to fruition still can, using sport.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just been the absolute hugest honor, the honor of my career, and the most moving thing that I've done. And I know Joel, who created the arrangement, I know he feels the same way as well.
I mean, it's an obvious choice for a track, being, Matt was so into rugby, being a coach and that sort of thing. So the track was just the obvious choice. But did you
Yeah.
feel any more pressure recording it because of, what it was for at all than you would normally, record music?
We really hoped that, yeah, you're right, it was for something so special and so important that, yeah, you're right, we absolutely we wanted to get it right. And we could even feel on the recording day, it was just like really moving, like what we're actually here for and why we're recording this. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It was definitely had that sense of, yeah, no, this is hugely important.
Definitely. And it's we're going to play it very shortly. I'm going to ask you to introduce it very shortly. As you rightly mentioned there, all the money raised from the song will go to the Matt Ratana Rugby Foundation. It's a fund within the Atlas Foundation, and the aims are simple: to change life experiences through rugby, harnessing the power of the game to make a positive, lasting impact on individuals' lives, developing skills and strengthening communities. And that's something that Matt did every day of his 54 years of life, being the character that he was. The track World in Union, the 2020 version, will be released on the 20th of November under the record label Matt Ratani Music, but you pre-order or pre-save the single, which is available, which we'll share on our social media channels, platforms, that you can actually go and get a copy of it. And obviously that money goes to a very worthwhile charity in the name of Matt Ratana. Joanna, thank you so much for joining me on Meridian Sports Show. Really appreciate your time, and it's been a lot of fun chatting to you. Love to have you on sometime in the future. If you've got any more music coming up, then we'd love to chat to you again on the show. It's been really, really good fun. I'll leave you to introduce the track, which is queued up and ready to play here on 107 Meridian FM.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been so lovely talking to you. So this is World in Union. This is in memory of Matt Ratner, and as you said, all the money will be going to his foundation. So this is World in Union.